So what I would do in a situation like this and relating it to a photo like this, so if you're looking at that from your point of view, you still find the closest corner to you, and that's going to start, which would be this here. Right, so we're going to start there, and you have a vertical line. I wonder if it helps if I draw on the...
Yeah. No. She gave me
Oh, I figured that more. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. So then Beth wrote me back, she says, you said you had these other sheets? And I'm like, ooh, maybe I forgot. I borrowed a color last week. Thank you for understanding the day. It's going to go a little trickier than normal. So we're starting here. This is the closest point to us. And we get that line in there. And there's the base. Then for the overall composition, which I'm moving into now, we want to say, okay, if this is my measuring unit, that looks a little high. How tall is the rest of the composition in comparison to that?
That's the fun.
So it's two heights, right? This is one, so you have one, and then you have two. So we don't know exactly where that's going to fall, so we'll just kind of say, okay, that's the top of that corner, and then the rest of the composition will end up being here. That's the top of these composition, right? So this, see how this double, 1, 2, right? It's kind of double the height. Is that in your way?
No, it's fine, Teresa.
No, I can. Better?
That's fine. Okay.
Stop me if you have any questions, seriously. So here's the unit of measure, and overall the highest thing here is about double that height. Okay. Then kind of figure out, okay, if that's my unit of measure, how wide is everything? So you take that one unit of measure and you go, it's like 1, just a little over 1 to this corner. So here's my, oh look, it's exactly the same size as that. How nice is that? So it's a little over 1, that's 1 and a little more. Okay? So that's going to be somewhere along where that is. It's setting it into space. Look at you. And then coming this way, 1, it's about 2. 1, 2. And that's going to be that corner of that cone. I'm not doing it in comparison to the frame of the picture. It's within the objects. So now we have, in this rectangle, all your objects are going to fit in there, and you know your whole drawing is going to be on the paper. You're not going to start here and then it gets bigger and bigger as it goes out.
Yeah.
It's going to be in relationship to each other. And then we can start from that point. Remember, we find that the base of the cube, figure what this angle is going to be heading out, about 45 degrees. And I'm not looking for the end of it right now, I'm just getting the angle. And then this one is just a very tiny little angle going out that way. Now the cube, it's a cube, so it's as wide as it is tall, about that. And again, I'm kind of drawing at an angle here. Remember how it looks funny at the angle? Like we talked about drawing a circle, if you draw it straight on like this, but if you're looking at it at a obliquely, it's going to turn into it. So I need to keep coming over just to make sure my angle's about right. So you have the starting thing. So this is how we build one item on another. We're not thinking about the overall thing. We're just thinking one thing at a time.
In the relationship to that.
In relationship to this right here, this, everything else is in relationship to this one line right here. Everything builds off that. So we have that angle. We know that this angle here is going to be at least the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to talk about perspective a little bit later, but for right now, let's keep them even. And so as that is, and that. So these all three are at the same angle. Again, I'm not concerned how far back they're going. I'm just building off one thing at a time. To finish that, now I'm taking that original measuring point. I should come up with a name for that. That base, I don't know. My measuring line. And how far, in comparison to that, and then turning it, does this corner, this edge of this cube come out? I'm not looking at the length of this, I'm looking at from there to there. Eyeballing it.
You're looking at the cube to the ball?
Right now, I'm just still on the cube.
Okay.
Not thinking about the ball at all. It's out there, not worried about it. So how far is it from here to here in comparison to my measuring unit? I'd say just under half. Does that make sense? If I measure, and I try not to use a ruler to measure, but it's about an inch. So if I turn it this way, see, that's about a half an inch.
And you're going straight across?
Straight across. I'm not thinking the angle right now. I'm just thinking at this point the distance between this and this line. Anyway, from here to here. How far is that? And then I'm going to do the same here out to this line.
Okay.
So I know this is about half and this is a little over. So that, it's about that. There's half of that will be about here. Okay. So from here to here is about half the length of this. And then out to here, it's about one and maybe a little hint more.
Yeah.
Good? Okay. So we have, now we can bring in those verticals. Vertical. We know the verticals are vertical. All of a sudden, boom, boom, yay, now we have that side of that cube.
Yeah.
Without trying to think all these other things, it's just happened. And over here we have this, okay. Now again, so the next thing, what do we need to know next? We have this line. We need to know how far from this corner to the back of this is. And I'm still on the cube.
Okay.
So in comparison to my original measuring part, how far from this corner to the back, straight up, not to the corner, but straight up, is it?
Okay.
Okay. And it's a third? I'm gonna say about a third. So I want, that's about a third, so I want it about that far up.
Yeah.
That's just the distance from this corner
Yeah, you
to the
marked
back
your
of the-
third, but that line is going to be the same as that one, and that one.
It is, yes, until we hit perspective. So for right now, yes, they need to be parallel, but you need to, this also helps. It's a double check.
Okay.
That
Now-
really does help, because I didn't know about that, and that really does. It's all based on that primary line.
Yes.
And
That really
but
helps.
when we do perspective, this is going to change a little?
Slightly.
Okay.
And let me give you, here's perspective. In a nutshell. In perspective, this line, and this line, right, are parallel in reality. This one, and that one. They need to be parallel. They need to be at least parallel on your paper. But slightly converging as they go into the distance.
Yeah.
That makes sense? So yes, they are parallel, But if it looks off, check that parallelness and then converge it just slightly.
Okay.
Mom, that's good?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll show you a couple of things in perspective in a moment too. All right, so now we have our cube. Ta-da, it's done. It's sitting there very nicely in space. Now we can build the other objects off from it. How do we do that? Go with blue. Let's say we find out where the cylinder touches the cube there and where it touches the cube there. We already know how high it is and we already know how far out it is. Yes, because we measured those before. So the cube is touching, see I can see my cube is off. Can you see that? Because I didn't stand back, I was standing back. It's too squat, it needs to be longer. I knew it was supposed to be longer over here and I didn't do that. With vine charcoal, it's easily adjustable. Let me get a pencil so you can see that better. And you can do this with graphite because we're not into shading it. I'm using the charcoal because it's brighter for you folks to see. Does that look more in keeping with this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So, cylinder touches about here, touches about, about halfway up on this side here. So I know the left edge of the cylinder and I know where the base of the cylinder sits in relationship to this cube. Good, so that's base. I just kind of draw out that way.
Because it goes to the edge of that line and
Yeah.
it goes up there. Okay.
And I'm just going to kind of draw a nice vertical line there. And this vertical line I just drew is just going right up off the paper. I'm not deciding the details of it yet. I know it's a cylinder. Now, if this is one side of the cylinder and this is the other side of the cylinder, and I know what a cylinder looks like at the base, then I want to use my X-ray vision to consider what's happening at that base of that cube that I can't see. I want to think through as if these weren't solid white objects, but as if they were transparent,
Glass.
like glass. Yeah. Do you see how I'm thinking there?
Mm-hmm.
And then this, the curve of this, as we talked about last week with the lighthouse, because I'm looking more down on it, is going to be a greater curve than what's at the top, because this is closer to my horizon. And as it comes up to the horizon, eventually it becomes a straight line.
Okay. The bottom is bigger than the top. Okay.
Yeah, so the bottom, remember we kind of did the lighthouse thing, and then as it gets up to your line of vision, if this is where your eye is, nice eye, huh? It's going to be that, and then it increases the curve as it goes down, because if you look down on the cylinder, why don't I have a cylinder? It's a circle at the base. If you were looking, straight down on it. So then that circle, as it comes up to your vision, for you guys it's here, it becomes a straight line. Slightly, So this up here is not quite as big. Now the top of the oval sits at the top of that line that we measured originally. So you're not really even having to measure the cylinder, you already have the measuring lines on the paper. A little flatter. So this is kind of the top of the cylinder. And that's why if you do it with something light, like a lighter pencil or your vine charcoal, then it's easy to correct and adjust. So before I finalize that, I can step back. Doesn't look quite tall enough, does it?
Looks fat to me.
It does look a little fat, so I've mismeasured somehow.
The box is too deep.
I think the box is okay. I don't think my overall height is tall enough.
Yeah, I think that's probably, because it's almost a 2/3 taller than the box at that point, but then the bottom half is in the box. That's better, much better.
So this is, see how when you're still light, before you add shading or color, that's when you want to make any adjustments. Looks a little better now?
Yeah.
And it really helps to step back.
You have, that's why on the easel it's flat, you can step back and you can really see it. I'll do the others quickly. Here's where the ball touches on that cube. So I get those in there, about 1/4 of the way, again about here and there. And that's good because sometimes we want to measure it and we might make it too big. You know, so by measuring it this way, that will help. It sits a little lower, you know, so you compare now back and forth. So to the height of this, we know where it touches. How far out does it go? There's my unit of measure. A unit of measure. From where it touches the cube, how far out? It's a little over 1. So on here, there's my unit of measure. It's going to be a little over 1. So this that I just marked should be out here somewhere, that left edge of the cube. And then with those 3 marks, I should be able to set in a fairly decent cube. Circle. Sphere. What am I dogging here?
Sphere.
I know.
You could also measure on the picture from the top of the ball to where the cylinder is too, right?
That's a good double check, exactly. So now we say, oh, so if I had a straight line going across from the top of the ball to the cylinder, yep, it's about 1/4 of the way down. Okay, I'm pretty accurate there. You can also double check this negative space in here. You understand negative space? Ginny, negative space would be the shape that's created between the objects.
Yeah,
Is that pretty accurate?
yeah.
So you start, these relationships is what really pulls everything together to make it work. And then if this is the top of that, we can also double check the height of our original unit of measure. What did you call it? Primary?
Yeah, primary line.
To how much of that? It's about 1/3. So if I measure this from the top of the edge of the paper, is it about 1/3? Yeah. So now we've done multiple checks to see how that one object is sitting in relationship in space to everything else. Then you can go ahead and darken it and play with it and stuff. And then you can do the same thing with the cone. So the cone is not touching. I'll go with red this time. See, here's the edge of that. It's not touching. But if you do a line straight down from the sphere, the edge of the cone is over past it a little bit. That's that bottom corner. I'm looking where this is sitting. How tall is it in comparison to what's around it? What's its height in comparison? I'm going to use this, my primary unit of measure. Now see, I can see the base of it is not at the same picture plane as this. It's higher up. It's almost where that back corner is. That's a nice little measurement. Let's throw that one in. So we know that's going to be in that area. It also sits a little in from the left side of the sphere. I'm going to bring it in a little more. It doesn't quite hit the top of our, where the back side of the cylinder is, so it's going to be down here a little bit. So now I know that somewhere within this shape is going to be my cylinder, my cone. And we need to find the middle of it. Why do we find the middle?
No, I don't know.
Right, we need to find the middle because when you make a cone, can you see my blue line okay? A little bit. Let me switch to this one.
Oh,
This corner and this corner are equidistant from each other. The edge here and the edge here are the same distance from that center line. All the way up, it has to be the same distance out from that center plumb line. So
left and right.
left and right. So
Okay.
if you dropped a line straight down through that, everything all the way down has to be the same distance out. Otherwise, you end up with a cone that looks like this.
Yeah.
So you need that center line. Bump, 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 bump. You know what I mean? I can't see from here.
Yeah.
Sorry. It has to be the same so that it's a right cone. Back to geometry. I didn't know there was math. Who was that? I think it was Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live one night, and they were doing a Jeopardy thing, and he says, "My understanding that there would be no math on this." I don't know, you guys don't remember. I don't know why that one comes back to me, but it does.
He was good.
Yes.
What has he done?
No, he's still around, I think.
I couldn't
So
remember.
one-
I was thinking I hadn't seen anything from him in about 3 years, so that's why I was wondering.
I'm measuring from this corner
Yeah.
to the center of the cone.
Okay.
It's about 2 lengths out. Seems a little long, so I'm gonna kind of fudge it a little bit.
That's the center of your cone. That's the center of your
Yeah, let me see. Maybe my original measurement was off a little bit. Yeah, that seems really far. 1, and, no, not quite 2. All right. So here's my original measurement, 1 and not quite 2. So I'm gonna, because I want you guys to get good drawing too. I'm gonna say that's the center of the cone. This is not gonna be exactly right, I can tell already. I know that the top of the cone is gonna be about here. It doesn't touch the ball. And it does come to a point. So my line is going to be, sorry Beth, from that point down to that corner here and the corner here. Right.
That plumb line that you used for the
Yep.
height, can you use that for the height to double check against your primary line on the cube? So if you know what I'm saying?
No.
Well, if you know that your primary line is X amount, can you double check that against the height of the cone?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So, but we also have to remember that the cone is actually sitting back here. I have just done it,
Right.
the overall
right,
cone,
Right.
and
And actually, it's going down through the center.
this is here.
Yeah.
Right, so it's coming down through the center, and of course the base of the cone is curved.
Right.
Because you don't want your cone, it's not a triangle, you want it to be a cone, it has to have that. There, so now basically, a little off, but you get the idea that here is now my cone. And before I did this, I should have double checked all my measurements and stuff, you know, before I make it dark. But one line built on another, everything starting with that primary line of measurement, back and forth, one thing at a time. Don't try to think the whole still life. Think, how does this relate to that? How does this measure in comparison to my original line? Would you like to try one yourself from the photo? Or do you want to move on to something else? I have no idea what time it is.
Is that the way you go about every still life? Okay.
Everything.
Everything? Okay.
If I'm doing a face, it's based on that. But the more and more and more you do it, the faster it gets. I don't have to do all of these. I eyeball it, but I'm not forgetting all of this.
Right.
It's just I'm so practiced at it, I can move right along. So the more you do it, the better. If you're doing a landscape, again, you figure all of it, it still works on top of all this. That's why if you can build a solid still life, you can draw anything. Because the human figure, a landscape, anything, is based on these 4 basic forms. You know, you've got a fir tree outside and a maple tree with a trunk, which would be a cylinder, and a house beside it. And start with the basics and start big. As we were saying earlier, that when Karen said Handel was talking about start with your big forms, you know, then come down. But start big. Don't get hung up on the details too early. Yes.
So,
Ask.
you went from that size to this size. So you were using one thing of measure for one and another thing of measure for the other.
You mean from here to here?
Yeah.
Basically, because if you're measuring like this, you don't want to use how big. You want to say this is 1.
Yeah.
And everything is in comparison to that 1, whatever that 1 is. This one happens to be, 2.5 inches. But if I start doing math, this is 2.5, and if I make it half that size and it's an inch, and then
But to do that, because I understand what she's saying, I get hung up on that too. So to do that, you really need to figure out what we did first on that was to figure the actual size on the paper and kind of get your parameters
Yes.
of the drawing itself with the still life. And then your primary.
Yeah, once again, how do I know that's, well, if my first unit of measure is like that.
then you're off the paper.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
How do you decide that?
it's a very simple, but still,
I guess that's a great question, because I think I'm so if you're thinking this is your piece of paper, right? And you want it kind of in from that, you don't want to go all the way to the edge. And that's going to be my first primary unit of measure.
yeah, I could do the same.
It's going to be less than half that overall height. Does that?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
No matter if your paper's this big or this big.
Right. So if I'm taking that little photo and I wanted to do it on that drawing board behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it helps sometimes, like if you look at the actual drawing she had here, she put it in quarters.
Yeah.
And that's what helped me figure out the primary line.
Yeah, it came like that. I didn't do that.
No, but I did that,
I see. Yeah, it kinda
and
helps,
that's what
right?
helped me
Yeah.
figure out
Yours
the,
has lines.
Yeah.
right, the size on this paper. Because when I went like that with my pencil, it's that big.
Right, and
So-
you see artists doing that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's
but you
exactly
see artists doing this
Yeah.
to say, okay, how big is your head in comparison to the rest of your body? Your head is my unit of measure. Everything has to be in comparison with that. So I see that your shoulders are like 1.5 heads wide. But if you're doing this, you can't move this.
Yeah.
Because if you measure from the top of this, and my thumb is the base of your chin, if I go like this, it totally throws it off. I see people trying to go like, stand, keep that locked. So yes, doesn't matter. If I were going to put that up here, cute little, can I do this? I'm going to do this. And I can't see the sketch right now. But if I wanted to fill it onto the board back there. Okay. See, this is my whole piece of paper, right? I realized right off the bat, my measuring line is going to be a little less than half, so I could start here.
Okay.
Right? I mean, my mind is already taking all this into consideration, so I've already brought it down. But I could do that. And then you start building off that. step by step.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. When you see people painting on the side of buildings, they have to do this.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a this big a drawing or a this big a drawing. Do you want to practice that, or you want me to go on to a little something else I had?
I'm good with this. If you want to move on, I'm fine.
Can I just a little on the perspective?
Yeah.
Because that will help you learn this. There's 1, 2, and 3 point perspective, basically speaking. I'm going to show you 1 and 2. 1 is easy. You can draw right on one of your notes or anything. 1 point perspective. Perspective has to do with the fact that everything is in relationship to your point of view. My point of view is different than you guys because you're sitting down, right? So again, as I'm looking at this table, I see it going off this way. But if I were down by it, it would just be a line. But if I were under it, that would change my point of view. So everything, your point of view is your horizon. Wherever you are. We talked about that last week. You know, if you're at the ocean, if you're high on a cliff, you see more of the ocean, the horizon's up high. If you're lying on the beach, you hardly see any of the water because your point of view is so low. So I start with my horizon, and 1 point is like railroad tracks, or if I'm standing right in the middle of this. Okay. So the front part of the railroad is here. That's my front tie. And as it goes back in space, right, that's 1 point perspective. And if I'm standing here and I'm doing a table, it would do that. If I'm inside a building, it would do that if I'm right in the middle of it. And then these ties get closer as they go back in the distance. There's a mathematical action to that, but I don't want to get you guys off on that. Just know that it starts wide and they get a little bit closer and closer and closer as you go back. Because if you're looking at this from straight above in the sky, it's parallel lines and these are all equidistant. But once you put it in perspective and lay it down, you're going to see it differently. If you're in the middle of a room, here's the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. And I'm standing in the middle of this room. So there's a back wall over here. And I'm smack dab in the middle of it. How do I get the perspective? Because as I'm looking at it, I'm inside an absolute cube, right? We're in a cube here. So if I'm standing in the middle, here's my my eye, my horizon, my point of view. Again, we've got a glass building, so we're looking through it. That means, I'm in the middle here. So I am this line, this line, this line, and this line are parallel to each other in reality. But as I'm in the middle, those lines need to converge on that horizon. That 1 point, this is the vanishing point. Your vanishing point is always on your horizon. It's a relationship between the horizon and your point of view. So when you're inside the box in the building, say you're standing in the middle here, so those, like that, where the ceiling and the wall intersect, the wall and the floor, okay. These, if I were looking at this from the outside, they're all parallel to each other, those 4 lines. Following me? Okay, good. So They all, because they're parallel to each other, need to converge on the same vanishing point. I'm standing here. They're all converging there. If these walls went back forever, they'd end up in a point down there, like if you're looking at a long corridor or something. So, okay, here I am. That's the ceiling to the wall, the ceiling to the floor. So here's my wall, right? And here's my floor. And that back there is the back wall.
I'm lost. Okay.
See
Oh, we see it now.
It's like one of those things, right? That comes back. So you
I'm looking into the box.
Yeah.
The box is coming at me.
Oh, you see the optical illusion. That's an optical illusion, yeah. If you put a window back here, you know it's back to back.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So yeah, you adjust that by when you get into shading, like contrast and stuff.
Ooh.
So maybe that pulls it back. So right, if you had a window now here, and they say the front side of the window were about here, that's this edge, and then the lines going back will still converge on that same vanishing point. Whoops. So you know that it goes back.
Cool. Cool. Can
Yep.
you tell me again, what is that dot in the middle is the vanishing point?
The vanishing point.
It's still you say the words.
The vanishing point is, your point of view is your horizon. So it's where the horizon, the center point of that horizon, where all the lines are going to meet.
Okay.
Always go back to your telephone lines or your train tracks to get your idea of what she means by vanishing point. Because
Yeah,
if you're looking at this window,
I can see
right
it.
here, that window has a vanishing point way back there.
Yeah.
It gets narrower at that side. If you start here and you're looking here, and that's in the right hand side of your eye, you can tell it's smaller. You don't look at it. Don't run your eye out. Just you can tell it's shorter.
Like if you took the pencil, then you measured it, and then you compared it like to that side, it would be smaller. So the top and the bottom of the window head to that vanishing point, the same one because it's parallel to the ceiling and wall. And
Basically
ceiling
makes
and
triangles
floor.
if you think of it that way.
Is a smaller person's vanishing point is different than.
So if I'm standing here, yes, the vanishing point always is in relationship with your eye level. So here I'm standing directly in the middle of the room. If I went down like this,
It would be very different.
it would be slightly different.
Slightly different. Okay.
So here's the walls again. Here's the back wall. Right. But now instead of standing right in the middle of the room, my eyes are down here.
Okay.
All of a sudden, this is where my vanishing point is way down here. So all of a sudden, these walls, that's pretty steep, and this one would be pretty flat. See, then my back wall's off now because I did that before I did the back wall.
Yeah.
Sorry. So
Yeah,
yes,
I
it
keep
changes.
having that thing is coming at me. Every time I look at it, I'm not.
It's because the dot's really strong, so that's.
Okay. Okay.
Don't get too hung up on this at this point, because most things you're going to see from the outside when you're drawing them to start with. But that helps the understanding of the foundation.
Did you draw the four outer lines first?
Yeah, I'm saying like,
You want a square and then put a square?
I'm in this room. Am I tall or short? Oh, I'm sorry again. No, you let me know. Are we tall or short?
You're,
What do you want me to be?
you're asking. Okay.
Super tall?
You're tall.
Okay, so my head's up here, my eye level. So I'm in the middle of the room, and there's my eye level, so that's my horizon.
Okay.
Yep. Any line, like the ceiling lines, because I'm
Yeah.
so tall, are going to be quite angular there.
Okay.
And then the floor, I'm going to see a lot more of that floor. And they're going back to that vanishing point. But before we go all the way to the vanishing point, we run into the back wall. Okay, so we run in to the back wall, which intersects wherever it is with those. Now I see what you're going to flip it again because the back wall is darker than these guys. Let me clear it up. Look a little more like we're in a room. If we have a window,
I haven't it. Yeah.
I just draw the verticals of the window, or like the sides of the cube, and they have to go back to that vanishing point. So I haven't drawn the top of the bottom of the window yet because I don't know where it is. I have to draw it in relationship to the vanishing point. So see how the top of the window doesn't have a big angle, but the base of it does? And that's a little different than the base of the floor even.
Okay.
And if we had a table, oh no, that's going to get more confusing. But I'll have it on the video, and you can watch it later. Again, I'm giving you weeks of teaching in like 4 little weeks.
Yes.
There's a table up against the wall, this wall right here. There's the table leg, it comes down to the floor. This one's out in the middle of the room somewhere. Now we know from this corner of the table to that corner, again, I'm going to go back to that vanishing point. And it's not such a big table, it doesn't take up that much of the room. But by using that vanishing point, I have found the angle of that. And the other thing I found, by drawing the lines through from the legs, is where do those back legs come down?
Yeah, they will be shorter too.
Because all I'm doing is I'm bringing them down vertically to intersect with that vanishing point line. How does it look?
Now it looks like a room.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
For her, can you tilt it a little bit further that way?
Well, I want Beth to see too.
There, that, just a little bit. That's what it just
All right,
a tiny bit.
vanishing point.
There. So the 1 point perspective we did was if you're standing right in the middle of something and you're looking directly back. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to say, let's stand off to the side of the room a little bit. So it's going to change it just slightly. So you have, and we're actually not in the room, okay? So we're not in the, we're standing just outside, but we have glass walls.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the outside of the room. Make sure everything's horizontal is horizontal and your vertical is vertical. Do you see how I'm even doing this and I'm still using my little finger here running along to keep those lines straight, and if that weren't there I would do it the same thing there. So that's such a nifty little trick to keep straight lines as long as everything stays straight. Okay, we're going to build a room from the inside. We are standing, now we're going to be sitting down in the chair. This is us sitting down in the chair.
And
There we are in the room.
Yeah.
Yep, and we're in a little cute chair. So we know that the horizon is going to be where?
It'll be
Right there.
Right, my eye level, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my horizon is here. And I can't see it, but it's out there. And I'm off to this side of the room, so I'm gonna have my vanishing point. I'm sitting over here and I'm looking, and it's gonna be there on the horizon, right about here, just because of where I am. If I'm over here, it would be off to the other side, and now I'm on this side of the room. So everything, all parallel lines are going, that are parallel to each other, are going to converge on that test. Hi.
I'm so sorry, the inspector just came now, so I'm so sorry.
So what did?
The state inspector, that's why we're.
That's all right. I mean,
Just set your stuff back to you.
we're just going through some perspective. I need to sharpen my. Whoop.
Mom set her alarm off.
She has a double alarm. Okay, some person is shopping center in Pennsylvania. Theirs got set off when they were inside, and they didn't know for 2.5 hours. I think their car was like,
I was growing up, we had a beagle, and this beagle was so smart. We'd go into the store, we'd leave the dog in the car, you know, the windows cracked and stuff. She'd stand on the horn
oh,
until we came out.
she learned. Oh.
She learned. She was like, well, you know.
Little rascal.
I know. She was very smart. Took your time. So if this is my vanishing point, now I know all of a sudden everything's going to converge on that vanishing point. The ceiling to wall line from this corner converge. You can do that if you want. The ceiling, I mean the floor and wall, and the same. Now you can see in this one that in the first one, we saw that all of these angles looked similar, right? I mean, this one and this, it was all kind of, but now they're off, they're closer. Can you see from this? But you can hold it, you can't see well. And I've been recording, so you can catch it, you know, fine. All right, so now, because we know this is what's happening.
Be spread out.
Good. Now, I'm kind of sitting a little further to the back of the room, so I'm close to that back wall.
Mm-hmm.
So let's decide the back wall's a little beyond me, and I'm just eyeballing this one. I've just, this is the floor of the back of the room. So from this, now I know that by just drawing vertical lines, I don't have to worry. All I have to worry is that they're vertical,
Sorry, I just think a piece of lead there. You want to-
and I don't have to think about where they're intersecting yet. I'm thinking these are going all the way through. Just sort of- And then because I have already done the corners that are intersecting with the vanishing point, whoops, that's going to give me where that back ceiling is going to go.
Oh, wait, say that again. How do you know that?
Because I started here. I went vertically up from there because the corners are going to be vertical, and then that where that intersects with this ceiling vanishing point and this ceiling vanishing point gives me the back wall. This is a really big room.
Yeah, that is a really big room.
This is a really big
A
room.
long gymnasium.
Could be, yeah. So
Yeah,
now,
my room is really weird looking.
but this is still 1 point perspective. So there's your VP, your vanishing point. Here is your horizon line, right? And your vanishing point. And now we can, yeah, we're sitting in a hallway somewhere. And there's a line of windows here. Now, all we know about the windows is that the sides are vertical. We've got a couple windows here, so I'm just drawing some vertical. And the top and the bottom of those have to go back to the same vanishing point as the wall. Again, I'm drawing very lightly at this point. So I get those measurements. And just like in the railroad tracks, as they go further back, they get the width of this one. The width of this one is not going to be as wide as this one because it's going further back.
Mm-hmm. I see.
If we did another one, it would be a little closer. But if you did a whole row of windows, they would go all the way back. And then it looks real. And all we have done is drawn lines in angles, but in relationship to each other, to that vanishing point. I'm going to be sitting on a bench. Here's the front side of the bench. Goes down to the floor here. Here's my bench. Now, it's a long straight bench, and as it goes back, it has to go because this side of the bench is parallel to the floor and this side is parallel. So they have to go back to the same vanishing point again. There's my vanishing point. See how, right? So it goes back to the vanishing point. I sit my butt down on it.
What was your first line? I'm sorry, Terry Lynn. What
This,
Okay.
this would be, like if this were my bench, this would just be this corner here. And I've just kind of put it there. I eyeballed it.
And is it straight?
Yes, this has to, it should be straight. Again, I'm looking at this at a weird
Yeah.
angle, but this has to be
Horizontal.
horizontal.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you got a tilty bench, so let's not do that.
Yeah. That one's because that's going that way. Okay.
And
And it goes back to the
Okay.
vanishing point.
want a little more while you're playing around with those lines. If there was somebody else sitting on this same bench but closer, if this is our head height and we're both the same height sitting down, then this person's top of their head would be here. Even the people would be in perspective and get smaller as they go back.
Okay.
And the feet follow the same line and they all,
And the feet follow. The feet go back to the.
Yeah. If both our feet are on the same floor and you drew a line between our feet, that would go back to that same vanishing point.
Okay, if there was a flower pot underneath the windows,
Okay.
it's got to go. Does it have to go back to the?
Yeah, let's put another bench.
Okay.
Is that okay? Because a flower pot doesn't take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, okay, let's do some flower pots. So a flower pot is basically a what?
A
Cylinder.
You want a cylinder flower pot? Okay.
Well, all right, a triangle,
Yeah, I was thinking a
or a
cone.
rhomboid.
So here's kind of a flower pot sitting on the floor here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So from this back corner of this, to that vanishing point, and from the base of that to this, my lines are getting, I keep doing many lines, but, okay. So there's that flower pot, and there's the top of it and the base of it. The next flower pot sits on the base of it, sits on the same vanishing point, and fits in there. And then the next one, again, they're gonna start overlapping a little bit now, but
But the flower pot itself, that's so, like your biggest flower pot closest to me, it's still gotta be within that vanishing point. That's what helps me build a better flower pot.
yeah, once you put the first one down, that dictates how everything else goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm like from here, from where I'm standing, like the right side of the flower pot is gonna be bigger than the left side of the flower pot because it's all within that vanishing point.
Depends on the shape of the flower pot. I was considering the flower pot was kind of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Same with lights. I mean, if there's, I'm gonna make what kind of light are we gonna have? Circle lights. Okay? So this is, that's where it's hanging on the ceiling, and there's a circle light. So here to my vanishing point is gonna be each light is going to be hanging down. They get a little closer as they go back. Whoops, that one didn't get closer. And the base of them are all going to be, so that tells you exactly where those are going to fit in as they go back. And the nice thing about, I mean, this is not a high quality video, and I'll go back because I, like for my Patreon, as I'm going along, do close-ups of this and explain it more step by step. In a classroom, and because I'm drawing at this angle instead of drawing at this angle, it throws me off. But you get the basic concept. This is the one we probably use the most, and this is the one you will use on your cubes in the still life.
And this was 1 point perspective?
That was 1 point. Everything
being
went
the
to
vanishing point.
1
Okay.
point. Now we're going to have 2 point perspectives where there's 2 vanishing points. There's multiple vanishing points, but they're all in relationship to your point of view, where your eye is. When you're doing a skyscraper, it's 3 point perspective because it's also vanishes as it goes. It goes vanishes this way and up this way. All right, so if we were drawing a house, so we are standing beside the house, which is basically a cube, and our eye level is right about here, about halfway. Okay? So, well, we're gonna, just like a cube, start with our closest corner as our unit of measure, our primary unit of measure. And then we're going to build off that. But if you look at this, you can see this kind of goes out, but see how it seems to get smaller as it goes back. There. Smaller. So that's what we want for the house. So we start with our horizon. We're going to be standing right about in, middle. So the corner of the house is directly in front of us. That's the corner of our cube, just like when we were drawing cubes before. Here's the base, and here's the top. Now we don't have to worry too much about our unit of measure because there's not a lot we're doing in measurement to that. we go to our imaginary baseline, right, that we've used before, that's perpendicular to our line of sight. And then we estimate the angle at which one side of the house goes up. So all we're concerned now is this baseline here. What's this angle that it's heading off at? I don't have a house I'm looking at, so I'm making up a house. And I'm gonna say, okay, this one's gonna kind of head off that way. I don't know, it's just heading up that way. And then as I look at the other side of the house, I am kind of further away from it, so I'm not gonna see a lot of that side of the house. The angle here is gonna be more dramatic. So that's all I'm concerned about right now is this angle and this angle as the corner of the cube of the house. That I just thought about that lighthouse that you did because you've got multiple buildings, so each building has its own vanishing points. So, okay, so now as I draw a line, I've determined my angle from this horizontal angle. I've determined that angle, and I'm going to continue that angle and this one off to the horizon, where it intersects in the horizon. Out here. So all I want to know is this is one vanishing point here. And the same with this. Just continue that out, and that's my second vanishing point. So we have two vanishing points now. Anything in reality that is parallel to this baseline of this side of the house is going to converge on the same vanishing point. Any line that's parallel to this will converge on the same vanishing point. Only this line. So let's look at what lines are. Well, we've got that ground line. We have this top roof line. Okay, we haven't measured how long that house is yet. We're just determining the angles. And if there's any windows, of course. Tessa, did you bring food? I smell food. Somebody's cooking then.
Yeah, I smell food. That's probably the restaurant down the way.
Is there a restaurant?
Yeah, that's food.
Is that making sense so far? Yes, okay. And anything that is in reality parallel to the base of this, like this side of the cube, is going to go to the same vanishing point. Look at that side. That's pretty dramatic. That would be, I mean, we're not standing straight on at the house anymore. I'm looking, it's slightly tilted, so I'm just seeing a little bit of this side and quite a bit of this side. A little bit of this side and quite a bit of that side. Now, we go back to our primary unit of measure. And we have to eyeball how far out, and I don't have a picture of the house, but
Oh, how big it really is.
yeah, if this is my unit of measure, how far, if I turn that sideways, how far does this side go out in comparison? And we'll stay in the middle because that makes it more accurate. Should we make a long house? That's long enough. So I'm gonna make it the same height going out as, so again, I decide that, I draw a vertical line, verticals. It's tricky with the point. If you take your pencil, touch one edge there, and then use your thumb, then you can. Yeah. How's it looking? Okay, good. All right, and then we'll do that with the. God, I hope this is coming out. With the other side. Again, you take a unit measure, you try to eyeball how far is it from this corner of the house to that back corner of the house. So when you find that the measurement from here to here as comparison from here to there, let's say it's about a quarter of that, that would be there, and then you draw another vertical. This is kind of a long, skinny house. Okay. All right. So you know if there's any windows or a door. I'm going to put a door here. Just vertical lines. All I'm doing is some vertical lines. I know where the base of the door is. How is the top of the door going to go out? Well, it's parallel to these front lines. So it has to, from this corner, go to the same vanishing point that these guys are going to. And the same with a window. Let's say there's a window here beside it. That we know where that front, that's about halfway up on the door there. And then back to that vanishing point. And then this one back to the vanishing point. And the next window will appear smaller. Yeah, drawing at an angle is not a good idea. And I'm going to continue on. If there were a window on this side, the windows would be at the same height as on this side. So I'm going to go back from, is that right? No, it starts here. Okay. But you're going to see so little of this one, you're not really even going to, be much at all. But on this left side of the house, any lines, like you have board and batting, they all have to go to that vanishing point over here. Hello.
Forgive me.
That's all right.
Sweet Joy's kitchen?
No,
I think
No,
that's
it is not.
I think it's that
I
way.
think it's that way because we were following the smell. I do not know.
I am so sorry.
No, that's all right.
No problem.
Hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Hope you get a bill when you get there. Maybe across the street, there's one across the bakery, factory was across the street.
But I'm smelling something savory now.
Yeah, it does smell tasty, I agree.
So remember, when you get to this other side of the house, any windows or anything they're not going to use, all the parallel lines on this side are going to go to this vanishing point, but on this side, they're all going to go to this vanishing point. Because it's a different place. How do we put a roof on this?
Oh, that's the fun one. That's the complicated part.
This is my trick, and you don't have to, I'm going to use color. I think the teal is brighter. All right. This cube here, that side cube, we are going to put an X through it in order to find the center of that cube. So from this corner here, even if it's in perspective, that will still work. We have the four corners. We draw an X through it. That's going to give us the center of that back corner, because sometimes the center is not going to be here, it's going to be visually. Sorry.
You do it where you can see it and then step back.
Yeah. It's going to be a little off center. It's not going to be right in the middle between that line and that line, because it's heading back. So you're going to see more of the front part of that. And that's how you find where the center of that is. Then you will draw a line vertically, and eventually these will be invisible lines. And that's going to give you the center
Of what?
of the peak of the roof.
Of the peak.
Of the peak.
You gotta demonstrate that one.
So what we've done, we've drawn a line vertically
On that
up,
side?
as if we're looking at this little house directly on the side.
Oh, you're looking on the side.
So we're doing
Looking toward
this
it.
one
Okay.
here, That's the center.
Oh, okay.
Give us that center up. And we'll find where the peak of it is. Yeah, I'm just eyeballing that.
Thank you, that's something I need to know.
So see, now with the peak of the roof, you can see that the eaves, the two angles on the side of the roof, one is this one and one is that. They're not
And
the
you're
same.
not, there's no perspective in that.
Not yet, no, that's just a measurement.
Okay.
What we've done is we've taken this
Yeah.
rectangle, dissected it to find the center so we know where this is, which
Yeah.
is here.
And then you're just drawing the line down to the corner of the
The
house.
corner of the house.
Okay.
Now, the nice thing that does for us is from this peak, as we go back, now we know because the roof line is parallel to the front line of the house and is going to go back to the same vanishing point there.
Pearl. Oh, that's the front line, I think that's the front. Okay.
Okay.
Until you get back
Yeah.
here. And then the back side has to be parallel to this. So this angle and this angle are the same. This is where, if you do get a chance to practice over the week, email me.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the rooftop line,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know how far forward to come? Should it come to that line you just made vertical?
This
On
one.
the X? The front, the left
This?
side, that one, yeah.
Okay, this side in
Yeah, yeah.
perspective, right? We've dissected that. We found the center point of it. Center point is here. Drew a line up through, and then, oh, I see. Like how high this is? Yeah,
Yeah.
I've estimated that.
The
I mean, you
roof line,
can
I
measure it in comparison to your
I was
initial
gonna
measuring
ask that,
line. Yeah, you could do
I
that.
did mine the way you did it, and it's got the front of the house going, leaning back. See, the front of the house is leaning back.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not
so
using
is
this
mine.
Yeah. So do I need to go further? Do I need to somehow angle this better?
center. That,
Should that be higher?
has to be vertical.
That's what I thought.
Vertical has to be
You know what,
vertical.
let's see, let's
Come
get it
down.
this way, there it is, there's vertical.
Right. So now you have the peak,
Okay,
which yours is a very high roof.
yeah, well, I did it up that way, yeah.
Yep, and your vanishing point is here, so yes, that goes back to the vanishing.
I got that, but I,
And then this line,
yeah,
right, that part of the roof,
right?
and this back is going to be the same angle.
Oh, okay,
And then by doing that same angle, which you know comes off from that corner of the house, that's gonna give you where this one goes to the vanishing point,
but
and
that's
this one
this one, that's the one
intersects.
I'm questioning.
Well, you're off the paper, I can't tell.
Ooh.
Because you're going off the paper, I don't know if the edge of the house is here or over here.
Oh, okay, but it's still, even at that point, it almost looks like it's, you know, the roof is not out far enough to this
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I would, yeah, say, I think because you can't tell. Well, you can estimate, here's,
Yeah,
so your vanishing point
right,
is gonna be about here.
right.
So that means that,
Would this be longer or shorter? Yeah, it's weird. I
can't tell.
Okay, you can't tell, okay,
Yeah,
that answers my question.
sorry.
That's one of my biggest perspective problems on house fronts, is keeping the roof, keeping the front wall from going, you know,
To keep it from going like this?
yes.
Verticals are vertical. Your horizon's always,
Yeah, but I don't know how far I can bring the top of the roof line to make sure it's this way. Whereas it seems to lean, I don't know, you know, it's a weird, we'll work on that.
let's,
as
no,
time
let's
goes
do
on.
another one. You want to
Yes.
try? Okay.
Yes,
I don't know. I say I'm making up a house here. That's not true.
I know you have fun with that.
I'm find a house.
Try this stuff is gonna get you further, not your art. Because I think you're going to belong to about that.
I'm gonna send you some
I think she
pictures
does too.
too. I would see if I can find a house.
I'll see if you can bring your thing. What do you live in a big house.
Right.
Horizon.
Near West Nashville, drink.
Right, okay.
I'm not gonna give you a reason, that's why I'm saying that. You know, and you can bring your lunch and sit here during lunch. Save you money. Yeah, I don't like people to go tell.
I'm sorry, that's not
I'll be
really.
passing my way home. It's no big deal.
Okay. Here we go. This one looks pretty good. Can I print this?
I'll just say no.
Yeah. No, do not print on me, no.
And then there's a line down the middle, right, or the corner of the house that we're closest to. What's the second one? Yeah.
The corner of the house we're closest to?
Yeah, you did that line, just like we did the cube, you did that line first.
That's where you start.
Primary line.
You find the primary line is usually the closest thing to you. Sometimes you end up, like if you had still life or objects in space, and the ball was the closest to you, like this, that would be your primary, the height of that is your primary measure.
Okay.
All right, have a house.
Oh, you gave us a building, okay.
Little ugly little house. My goodness.
This one.
Is this good? Because, I mean, I'm kind of moving along with you guys.
You got a good idea how
But that's,
circles are.
you're good, okay. So here we have a house. Where's our primary line?
Right at it.
Right? Right at
The
this
shadow
front
of the
corner.
light.
So it's this one right here.
Uh-huh.
Ooh. Bushes are here. Dang it. Now we have to see through the bushes. So we have to figure bottom of the ground is probably right about there. Good?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So that's our primary line. Let's get going. We draw that. That's our unit of measure.
Just be perfect right
Where is our horizon? Well, we know this is a doorway, and normally we're about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way up a doorway, right? Most of the doors are just above us. So I'm gonna say that about here.
now. Top of the bushes.
Yep. Well, that edge of the bushes, yeah. So that's going to be kind of where we're standing. So that gives us our horizon out here.
Okay.
So about 1/3 of the way up on our primary line is our horizon.
Why doesn't one do this?
Because this is a 2-story building.
The-
So I'm just gonna draw the horizon right out.
Okay, that's the giving that.
Okay, you do the.
Mine's a little higher actually, so I gotta make my building a little higher.
And if you have questions, speak up. She's used to it. This isn't a lot, this isn't.
I taught high school for 20 years, I'm used to, if you have questions, let me know.
Yeah.
I know you kind of missed earlier, so.
She'd rather have you say, wait a minute.
Yes.
Do that again, whatever. Okay? Don't hesitate. We've done it.
Right, so we have our primary line,
Okay.
just like when we're drawing a cube.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we find our vanishing point, and we do that. Again, here's a trick. We can't see that side of the house. We can't see the base of it. To know, let me back up. Primary line, here's the line that's perpendicular to our line of sight. Our line of sight is always straight on. That line is perpendicular, so we can determine the angle at which this line goes off and the angle at which this line goes off. It's not much of an angle.
Mm-mm. Not down at the bottom either.
So here's that perpendicular line to our line of sight. This goes off kind of at a very small angle, and this goes off at a rather small angle as well. And each house and where you're sitting in relationship to it are going to be different. angle, that angle.
It's the angle that we're determining, but it's still going off to that vanishing point, which is the horizon.
You determine the angle first, and that's going to give you where your vanishing point is. And we tend to use this one because it's sitting on the ground. It's the most obvious most times.
Alright. I'm slow to catch on sometimes. This is one of my bugaboos.
Yep.
You've got one. I told you I'm gonna learn stuff from you, even though I know stuff. Okay? I've got to learn. I don't know everything. Alright.
I'm always learning.
I wanna see if I missed hearing it in the first half.
Yeah.
The two vanishing points come down to the horizon line?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I'm missing it. So that would make a steeper one on the top, wouldn't it? Or is it just further
Yes,
back?
but we haven't determined that yet.
Is it further back than what I'm thinking? Probably. I'll wait and see.
We start with the middle. We decide where, well, first of all, we need to know where we are. So we decided we're standing here. This is about where, so that gives us our horizon.
Okay, got that.
Because that's where our eye is. If we were down here, it would be lower. If we were up higher, it would be higher.
If you're my height to be at the ground level.
Yeah, you'd be down here, so it would look different from you. If somebody 4 feet tall and somebody 7 feet tall were standing
Yeah.
and painting this building, they would see it differently.
Quite a difference. Yeah.
So our height, where our eye is where our horizon line is. So that's the horizon. And I drew in the horizon line here. And that has to be horizontal. If your horizon's like this, everything else is going to be off. Your verticals are verticals, your horizon is horizontal. Everything builds on that. All right, so here we have the corner. We come down from we're looking at it here. We've determined the angle that these two lines go off. Yes? Following me?
Yeah.
It's like when we did this and we decided on those angles down there. Now we carry those up until they hit the horizon line.
Okay.
Now my left side is going off the paper. My horizon and the base of that line are not going to intersect until out here.
They're different, aren't they? The two sides.
Yes.
Good, I want to make sure.
Because the only time that they're the same is if you're looking directly on at the corner.
Okay.
If this is tilted slightly, you're going to see, so you see less of this side now, and you see more of that side. So
Right.
less of this side, more of that side.
Okay.
So it depends on how you're looking. And this, we're almost at the corner, but not quite. We see a little more of this front side than we do that side. So, kind of had determined where our vanishing points are. This one I see is right about here, and this one is right about here. You know, so sometimes you have to kind of figure it out. At first, I used to, if you have a table like this, you clean it off after. You can actually, draw on these tables and you can clean them off after. All right, so we have our upper corner of the building. And we know that this side of the building, and I'm ignoring all this fancy stuff, goes off to the same vanishing point that this one does. So this and this go to the same vanishing point. So that vanishing point is there, and this one has to
So
go.
that means that top one comes down sharper than what you think it does when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because when we look at it, our mind wants to straighten it out, and
Yeah.
if you understand the laws of perspective, then it
All right,
works out.
thank you.
And again, the other one, the vanishing point was over here, so this top corner of this is going to go off to the same, let me say that again. Now we're going to do this side. So this is parallel to the top here. They're going to go to the same vanishing point.
Okay.
So you don't have to stop and figure out the angles of what's happening up here. You've already determined it by this and how it intersects with your horizon.
Okay.
I've got a curve on that. Not perfection. This is is why you draw lightly, because then you can adjust it at this point if you need to. You need to get your underdrawing really solid, because if you get the underdrawing and the form wrong, no matter what you do on the top, your shading, your decoration, anything is not gonna work. It's gonna be off. All right. So we have our top two now. We have the height, our primary line and measure. We're gonna, in comparison to that, from the top of that corner to the base, how far out in the middle on the horizon line does the other go? Well, about 3/4 of the way. Do you see what I'm looking at? I'm looking at this line right here, that far side of the house. In comparison to my measuring line, out there, actually more like 2/3. So just eyeballing it, about 2/3, and be right about there. So all I have done is measured from here to here, this intersection, here on the horizon line. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Yeah, I got lost there.
Okay.
So I got you that it's 3/4, but when I do that, I think I got the whole thing wrong.
So we're now looking for, from here, we're looking for where does this back corner go? We measure our primary, compare there. It's about a little more than 2/3. Now, if this were a different proportion, no matter if it's this big or this big, there, and about 2/3 out on the horizon, directly out on the horizon. I'm just following it straight out here, to find this spot right there. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I used to have a student who would do that 6 times in a row. That's how she sneezed. Mine are the kind that clean out the room, you know.
Well, the last one usually does.
So now-
Keep silent for so long.
Now we draw a vertical line, right? Because we have the measurement of that side. Now we have the measurement of this shaded side of that house. You got a cramp in my somewhere.
Oh, bless your heart.
All right, now good, okay? Now we'll go to the other side, right? So we need to find out, again, we have a tree in the way, so we have to imagine that I think the corner of the house is right here. This is not the best, it's the first one I found. But let's say the corner of the house is right here. So now we need to find that. So that's the corner, the vertical side of the house. We are going to measure from our primary line on the horizon, how far is this out? We measure it, it's just about the same. It's like 1 unit. About there. So I have found this point on this paper. Yes, good. Vertical line, because the vertical is always vertical, unless you're doing a skyscraper, and that's another whole story. So now we have the 2 sides of the house.
Yeah.
We're good to go. Oh, you know what I forgot to get? A house with a roof on it. But now you can also see, if you're drawing windows, let me see where they start. A little more than halfway up. So if this first corner of this window is here, I know it's vertical. I have a rough idea. I've kind of measured in comparison to this, the height of that window. I haven't, but I'm doing it in my head. So all the windows from here go to that same vanishing point, the top of the window, any window, and the bottom of any window. Goes to that vanishing point. This is just the top. These are like all the dots. If you drew a line from the top of this corner, this corner, this corner, all of this, it would create a line. And the same with the base. So that's why they all go to the same vanishing point. And they get a little thinner as they go back. I think there's another one off there, but I'm just gonna. And then the same kind of on this side too. I think that's at the same height. So if I continue this out to the corner, and then from this corner on this side of the house going to that vanishing point, that would give me the top of any window on this side. Going off in that direction. Same with the door. It's a big door or something. I don't know what this door is doing. But, well, that's a little door because we decided earlier that that was my head, but okay. Now what if we want to put a roof on it? You want the roof,
Yeah, that's.
do you want the peak this way or this way?
I'll let them decide. Left or right?
On the left.
So the peak is over here. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to pretend there's a peak of a roof over this way. Right?
Uh-huh.
So what do we do first?
You draw the X.
Yep. We divide the corner of this shape. So by doing that, we just draw corner to corner, corner to corner. That gives us the center of this rectangle. That's the center point of the rectangle. If we measured it, you would see that it's not halfway between these two vertical lines. It's actually different
Yes.
because it's divided into space. Now that we have the center point, we draw a vertical line up, and that's going to give us the peak of the roof needs to be on that at some specific spot. How do we find how far up the peak of the roof is? That's called the peak of the roof, right?
Right.
Okay, good. Like I can use these terms and I'm like, is it still called the peak of the roof? So let's say it's half, we do the measurement and it's, hi,
Is it okay if I sit here?
yes, of course.
Thank you.
So we measure it like we've done our little eyeball-y thing, and we want to say, okay, it's about half as high as that. So we want to find halfway, because we're making it up. So it's, here's that, and we'll say it's like halfway. So see how I did that? I divided that, so we found the center, not the halfway point, but the center. Vertical line up. Now we do the comparison of that primary line to the height, and we said about halfway. That is where the peak of the roof is going to be. It's going to look odd, because as you notice, from the peak of the roof down to each corner is not going to be the same angle. But they're going to be the right angles. No? The correct angles.
But it still looks like, even when I complete it, maybe it's just me, maybe, that point appears to, from the top of the building to the top of the roof, seems to be leaning backwards. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't, it's me? Okay.
I think it feels that way because this is not quite perfectly vertical.
That's what I said, it didn't lean.
And this is why you see the finger here and the stiff
Yeah.
hand.
Okay.
It's just these two lines were not quite
Oh,
vertical.
oh, I see this
So
vertical
that's why
here.
it's leaning a little bit.
That didn't help any, no.
All right, so now we know because the peak of the roof is parallel to this side and the base, it goes to the same vanishing point. that means it has to go down to this. Oh boy. So it's heading off in that direction. Because it's parallel to this and to this, they all go to the same vanishing point. Any lines that are parallel in reality converge on the same vanishing point. If we were looking at this house from this side, it would look straight on. It would basically look like this. So this line, which is this line becomes this in space, and this line becomes this. Now we need to find the back side, right? How do we find that? It is going to be the same angle as this front edge of that roof. So here's the edge of the roof. I'm going to move that back until it intersects with this corner, and it has to be at that same angle. Like that. Now we have a nice, well, it's not exactly this because we added a roof on. We've expanded. I'm going to put a chimney up here. When the chimney sits on the house, it has to sit at the same angle as the roof, because this whole roof, these are all going back at the same angle. And now the top part of the chimney has to, the base that's sitting on the roof goes back to the same vanishing point because it's parallel to this, this, and this. And this side of the chimney, which is this side, has to go back at the same angle. It has to go to the same vanishing point as these guys. There's that. We have found that upper angle. That's going to go back to that vanishing point. So by knowing just so very few basic things and how to put them in space, you can draw anything. As I said, you can draw a face, you can draw a landscape, you can draw